I am 87 years old, and I want to tell you about the afternoon I came within one pen stroke of putting my name on a paper I did not understand a word of. 8 habits grew out of that one afternoon. 8, and I have kept every one of them since, the way a man keeps the coat he once got cold in. I counted them out on my own back step this spring, with the coffee going cold at my elbow. When I finished counting, I did not feel ashamed. I did not feel proud either. I felt honest, and honest is a quieter thing than either of those two. Come closer if you are anywhere near the age I am. Pull your chair around to where the sun is. I am not telling you I stopped trusting people. I did not. I am not telling you I turned sharp or careful the way a suspicious man is careful, sniffing the air for something rotten in every room. That is a hard way to spend your last years, and I have watched it hollow out better men than me. What I became was slower, that is the whole of it. One night slower than I used to be, every single time, with 8 small habits standing around that one night like fence posts around a young tree. My grandmother had a way of speaking that landed like a stone dropped in a bucket. She used to say, "Nothing that is good for you needs your name before morning." She would say it once and go back to what she was doing, and we carried it around for 50 years. My grandfather said the other half of it, and he said it out on the woodpile, not in the house. He said, "Whatever cannot wait for the sun is not waiting for you. It is waiting for your hurry." I thought for years they were talking about patience, and patience sounded like something for people with nothing to do. They were not talking about patience. They were talking about the difference between a thing that wants you and a thing that wants your name. The old ones knew that difference. They watched for it the way they watched weather. So here is the first of the 8, and call it a confession, because that is what it is. I do not sign anything on the day it is put in front of me. One night sleeps on it, always, no matter how small the paper looks. That habit was born on the afternoon I told you about. A pleasant voice, a good pen laid down, turned toward me, a stack of pages thick as a sandwich, and me at 79 with my reading glasses out in the truck. I got as far as putting my thumb on the paper. Then I heard my grandmother, plain as if she stood behind my chair, and I stood up and said I would bring it back in the morning. You do not judge the depth of the water by looking at it in the evening light. The evening light lies. It makes 6 feet look like 6 inches, and a man wades in whistling. My friend Roy signed his the same afternoon it reached him. I will come back to Roy. Before I go on, let me set something down beside you. The Native Way is the book where I put the sayings the old ones handed me, along with the plain daily practices I still keep. The link for it is in the description and in the pinned comment. There is no pressure in that from me, none at all. I am sitting on this step either way, and I would rather have your company than anything else. Now let me give you the second confession. The second confession is that I read it out loud, alone, in my own kitchen, with the radio off and nobody in the house to hear me sound like a fool. My ear catches what my eye lets by. My eye is 87 years old and it has gotten polite in its old age. It slides over the small words, the ones that hinge a whole page on themselves. Unless, except, until. My eye pats those on the head and keeps walking. But when my mouth has to say unless out loud, my mouth slows down and my ear sits up like a dog hearing a truck in the lane. There was a page I read 3 times with my eyes and understood perfectly. I read it out loud once and heard a small word sitting in the middle of it like a stone in a boot. It had been there the whole time. My eye had been stepping around it for 3 readings and never told me. I do it standing at the counter too, never in my chair. Because my chair makes me comfortable, and comfortable is exactly how a page gets past a man. I go one line at a time with my finger under it, the way my grandmother went through the almanac. If my mouth stumbles on a sentence, I read that sentence again. A sentence that will not go down easy has usually been built that way on purpose. My grandmother sent us through the tall grass slow every summer of my childhood, and she never once explained it as caution. She just said, "A snake in tall grass is quiet, so you walk the grass slowly, not fearfully, slowly." There is a world of difference between those two words, and it took me 60 years to find it. The third confession is a question I ask before anything else, and I ask it out loud too. Who is worse off if I say no? That is the whole question. Not who is angry, not who is disappointed. Who is actually worse off tomorrow morning if the answer out of my mouth is no? There was a young man at my door one spring. Very pleasant, good shoes, called me sir more times than my own children have. And I stood there in the doorway and I asked myself that question. If I say no tonight, whose evening is ruined? His. Whose is not? Mine. Now, I want to be careful here, because I am not telling you that young man was anything at all. I do not know what he was. That is exactly the point I am making. I did not need to know. And I ask the same question about people I love, which is the harder half of it. A paper came to my table once from somebody I would hand the truck keys and the house key to on the same afternoon. Good person. Meant every word. I went out and looked at the chimney anyway, because the question was never about whether a person is good. My grandfather used to stand out back before he decided anything and look at that chimney. "Watch which way the smoke leans," he said, "and you know where the wind is going." He did not need to see the wind. He only needed to see what the wind was already moving. The fourth confession is that I do not sign anything I have been told is urgent. Not slow down about it. Do not sign it. Here is Roy. 61 years I knew that man. We were boys together in a place with one road. Roy got a call on a Tuesday and was told the thing in front of him had to be settled that afternoon, or it would be gone. And Roy was a proud man who did not like being the last one in a room to understand something. He signed at 3 o'clock. He spent a long stretch of his quiet years untangling what he did that afternoon, and he never once told me the particulars, and I never once asked him. That was his. He would only look at his hands at my table and say, "I had it in my hand, and I let it go fast." A hurried river is a shallow one. You can hear it from the road, all that noise, and you cross it in 3 steps and never wet your knees. The deep water is the water that hardly seems to move at all. Anything worth my name has always been willing to be still for one night. The fifth confession is a wooden box on the shelf above the flower. Every paper I have ever signed is in that box. One box, one place. My father's tools used to live in it, and now his tools are out in the shed and the papers are on the shelf. And Clara knows exactly where it sits without ever having to be told twice. I learned that the hard way, on a morning I have not forgotten, going through coat pockets. Coat pockets, a drawer in the spare room, a shoebox, the glove box of a truck I no longer owned. Half a day of my one life hunting for something I had already done. Clara asked me one Christmas where things were kept. She asked it gently, the way you ask a man who might get his back up about being asked. I did not get my back up. I walked her to the shelf, lifted the lid, and put it back down. That was the whole conversation, under a minute of a long life, and it is the best minute I ever spent. The squirrel that scatters its winter store in 20 places is feeding the crows. My grandmother said that watching one out the window, and she was not talking about squirrels, she was talking about my uncle, and everybody at that table knew it. The sixth confession is the one that took the most out of me. I do not put my name under another person's borrowing, not for a neighbor, not for a friend I have known since the one road, and not for my own blood, which is the part that turns the knife. Ben came to my kitchen table on a Thursday with a paper and the kind of hope on his face that I remember wearing myself once. He is family. He is a good young man, He did not deserve one bad thing. And I said no, not because I doubted him. I want that understood, and I said it to him plainly on the day, looking straight at him. Because you cannot carry two men across the same creek. You get out to the middle where the stones are slick, and you go down, and now there are two men in the water instead of one, and nobody left standing on the bank to reach for either. There was a long, thin year after that. Holidays where he shook my hand like a man he had met once at a funeral. That year was quiet in a way I felt in my chest every morning. I would still say no. The seventh confession is 6 words long, and it took me until my 70s to say them without dressing them up. I am going to think about it. That is the whole sentence. I used to decorate it, and every decoration was a small lie. My eyes are bad today. My daughter handles this for me. I have an appointment I am late for. I built little houses of excuse around a plain true thing, and the plain true thing was only ever this. I wanted a night. I was ashamed of wanting a night. I thought a night made me look slow, and slow is the one thing an old man is not supposed to look. The first time I said the 6 words bare, with nothing wrapped around them, the fellow across from me sat waiting for the rest of the sentence. There was no rest of it. I watched him hunt through my face for a door and not find one, and after a while he said, "All right." And that was all that happened. Nothing broke. Nobody was insulted. 30 years of excuses turned out to be a fence built around a field with nothing in it. The oak does not explain to the pine why it grows slowly. It just grows slowly, and it is still standing there when the storm has finished with the fast ones. Now I say the 6 words, and I let the silence after them belong to whoever wants to fill it. Usually nobody does. The 8th confession is the most important thing I will say to you today. I named the one person who will read, for me, what I can no longer follow. Her name is Clara, my daughter. I did it plainly at that same kitchen table, on an ordinary Sunday with rain on the window, and not one thing the matter with me. I did it while the choosing was still mine to do. That is the part I want to leave sitting in the middle of the room, while the choosing was still mine. You pick the guide before the fog comes in, not standing in the middle of it with your hands out, hollering. In the fog, you do not choose, you take whoever answers you. Clara reads pages to me out loud now sometimes at the table, her finger going along under the line, and my old ear sits up and does the work it has always done. And when she comes to one of those small hinge words, she stops without me asking and looks up, and the two of us wait. Now I want to say something to you about counting 8 of these out loud, because I know how a list like this can land on an old chest. Naming them was not the same as hating myself. It took me a long time to learn that, and I am not sure I could have learned it at 50. Hating yourself is looking at what you did and deciding it is what you are. It is picking up one afternoon out of 87 years and holding it in front of your own face until you cannot see anything else in the room. Naming is different work. Naming says, "Here is a thing my hands do, and hands can be taught." A habit is a path worn through the grass. It is not the shape of the ground. Anybody can see the difference if they walk out there and look. The ground was here first. The ground will be here after. And the path is only where the feet kept going because the feet were not paying attention. I was not a foolish man on that afternoon at 79. I was a tired man being polite in a room where politeness had been arranged for me, on purpose or by accident, and I will never know which, and it does not matter, because the habit I built afterward works the same either way. I have watched men my age take the other road. They call themselves foolish one time, out loud, and then they never look at a page again as long as they live. They hand the whole business to whoever is standing nearest. That is not caution. That is a man walking out of his own room and leaving the door open behind him. So I do not carry that afternoon as a shame. I carry it as the reason for a box on a shelf and a daughter who knows where it is. And I will tell you the strange thing about waiting a night. Not one time in 20 years has a night taken from me something I actually wanted. Not once. Everything good that has ever come toward me has been perfectly willing to still be there at breakfast. So let me gather this up for you now, the way my grandmother gathered the ends of her shawl before she stood up to go. 8. I never sign on the day. I read it out loud, alone, in my own kitchen. I ask who is worse off if I say no. I do not sign what I have been told is urgent. I keep every paper in one box in one place. I do not put my name under another person's borrowing, family included. I say I am going to think about it, plainly, and I do not apologize for it. And I name the one person who will read what I can no longer follow, while the choosing was still mine. Now turn those around and let them look at you for a minute, the way I had to let them look at me. When something is put in front of you, does your hand move before your night does? Whose voice is in the room telling you it has to be today? If somebody asked you this afternoon where your papers are, could you walk straight to them? And the hard one, the one I sat with longest on that back step. Have you told anybody who reads for you when the print gets too small? Or are you still waiting to find out whether it comes to that? I know some of you are sitting there right now with a question you would rather not say out loud in front of anybody. So I will say it for you. Is it too late for me? Here is all I have, and I will not hand you more than I have. I do not know what is ahead of you. I cannot promise you a single outcome, and any old man who tells you otherwise is handing you the evening light. What I know is this. Age took my knees and most of the hearing on my left side, and it did not take my ability to notice one thing. It did not take my ability to make one ordinary choice about that one thing. Noticing and choosing. Those two stayed. They stayed for me at 87 on a back step with cold coffee at my elbow. So tell me which of the 8 numbers hit closest to home for you, and tell me down in the comments. Just the number is plenty, though I would rather have the story if you have the heart to type it. I read every comment that comes to me, every one of them, usually early, before the day starts making its noise. And if this sat well with you, come back and sit with me again tomorrow. I will keep the chair where the sun is. Go easy on yourself today.